Hey everyone, and welcome back after a very long break to Todos Santos. Today we're going to be starting the urban core, and what that means for this episode is that we're going to be beginning the main freeway, and we're going to be creating the large main interchange of said freeway, and we're also going to be beginning the basic road layout of the downtown area. Okay, so here's a look at what we've done so far, going in approximately reverse order. Here you have the big resort that we did, and some buildings I placed off screen. There's the slum down here underneath the main old town, and of course this little pier dock area we did, the island, and the very first episode, the castle. So now you can see where we're going to start departing from what San Juan is like in real life, and we're going to be more picking and choosing inspiration from different areas and from different cities all across the world. And the first major departure we're making is right here. What you're seeing right now is this is going to be the sort of main drag of the downtown area, which in San Juan is pretty far away as far as the city goes from the old town area and that thin island along the top of the map. Nonetheless, we'll be taking a lot of inspiration from that area, especially when it comes to the overall feel of it. But additionally, we'll be taking some specific road layouts and architectural styles and blending them together to make our own downtown. You can see here that there's that sort of little flat area right in the middle of this downtown that's a little higher up than most of the rest, and it's quite high up from sea level, actually. Honestly, I built this probably about a year ago. I've been sitting on this footage for a while, and I can't remember if I did that on purpose. Anyway, with how I've been building it, it's kind of ended up naturally creating these little hills running down from the downtown area to the shoreline, and I've just sort of run with it, and I've been working with that and creating some cool slopes, but that stuff doesn't come in until later episodes, but just keep an eye out for that. Here you can see me copying and pasting this road with Move It, and what I wanted to do is make essentially what for most of the city is a divided freeway meets up here with this main freeway. There's the big interchange we're going to build this episode, sort of like a modified weird stack interchange. It's pretty cool. And then what it does is it meets up with the main avenue, which is not a divided freeway, of course, because it runs right through the middle of downtown. So I designed it really to be inefficient and in that sense sort of realistic. And this is something I often like to include in cities I'm building, namely to have a divided freeway or expressway basically turn into a surface road. I think that's something I see in quite a few cities, and I just think that's an interesting sort of quirk of road designs. At this point in the build, I realized that I was going to need some sort of grade separation, and I decided to go with sinking part of the freeway, and we keep gradually sinking more and more parts of it deeper and deeper until essentially the whole corridor here becomes a sunken freeway. So keep an eye out for that as we keep moving and adjusting things. Anyway, the theme I was going for with this interchange is that I wanted it to look like it's been cobbled together over the years as they've been expanding the freeway, and as downtown and the rest of the city grew, they kept adding new ramps, remaking parts of it as that demand changed, instead of just going all in on an expensive remodel for a full stack interchange. So some of the turning ends up being mediated by flyover ramps, and some of it is mediated by traffic lights. So here I'm pulling out these little side roads here, and the point of that at this junction is to sort of pull the sides out, because when you have these two roads meeting at this very sharp angle, the game for some reason naturally adds like a bend to the sidewalks there at the edge. And so these little pullouts don't totally eliminate the problem, but they do seem to reduce it a little bit. So here you can see the beginning of what essentially turns out to be a frontage road along the left-hand side there of the freeway, which feeds into this main ramp that people will take from the downtown to head north on the freeway there up to the Old Town area. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a cup of coffee and let you watch this part, and I'll be back in just a minute. Enjoy. I got my coffee and I'm ready to move on. So here I figured that most of the traffic going into downtown would be coming from south of it on that right-hand side of the freeway. So I wanted to have this completely separate area where all that traffic that's going into downtown could separate from the main roadway, have its own lane for a while, and then of course some of the traffic's going to be going on this big flyover ramp all the way up into the left on that big curve, and some of it splits off to the right to go to the other freeway, which is heading east. So you can see here I'm kind of massaging the road with Move It just to get the gentlest and nicest looking curve we can get. Of course, just ignore this kind of hook looking thing that I'm making now. We do go back and make it look a little bit nicer. You can see I'm dragging some roads there just to get the pillars, and I think that's honestly a lot easier than just, say, using Find It to find the right pillar and placing it there by hand, or even using Move It to copy one from somewhere else, because when you use the road to just pull it out and it kind of just spawns it there automatically, it's just simpler, and you can always go back and adjust it later, either manually with Move It or with network skins by just upgrading the road. And while I'm on the subject of mods like network skins, while you watch me do this kind of first attempt at this flyover ramp, I'd like to mention that it was probably about a year from December 2019 to December 2020 where I didn't even open the save for Todos Santos. And when I did open it back in December for the first time, there were a lot of old mods and outdated mods, and generally just mods that were either broken or slowed the game way down and that sort of thing. So I spent only a couple hours really going through my mod list. There's a new mod called Mod Compatibility Checker, and that is by Aubergine18, and that was extremely helpful. It basically, what it does is exports a list of your mods when you load the game, I believe, and it has super helpful information in the output log that will tell you mods that are potentially broken or outdated or not likely to be updated. And you can basically quickly go through and look at all the mods, and I found probably 5 or 6 that were completely outdated or broken or had superior newer versions available. And so by doing that, I was able to eliminate a bunch of old mods that were slowing down the game or didn't have the right functionality or were just completely not working. And pretty much all of those had new versions, either by the same author or by new authors. For example, Traffic Manager Presidential Edition, I think it's called. That's pretty much an essential mod as far as I'm concerned, especially for this style of play. And I was able to install the new version, uninstall the old version, which was no longer working, and it saved every single change that I had made with the mod, and it works even better. It has more features, and it's just pretty much awesome overall. Additionally, there were things like my population balance mod and that sort of thing that have new versions. Everything was imported, all my settings went over. So I was basically able to get the game up and running and be able to play it without losing any save data or anything like that with basically just a couple hours of work, which is so cool. So big shout out to all the mod creators that allow us to play this awesome modded version of the game. And by the way, if you're interested in seeing all those mods, my mod list is in the description, in addition to all my assets and everything, and it's completely updated to what I'm actually using now. So you can see I'm adding these ramps in here, and what I wanted to do is I had all this kind of empty space in between the highway and the frontage road, and even in between the two highway sections. As we'll see later, we're going to add a ramp in the middle, and I really wanted to fill that up with as much concrete as I could just to sell that whole look of a spaghetti interchange and a whole section of freeway. So we do add in quite a few ramps just to make sure we use every square inch of this space that we can. And you'll see that it results in kind of a weird looking and weirdly functioning corridor here that I am like totally happy with, because it completely fits this whole theme I'm going for, with things that have been like added on and tacked on as the need arises, as opposed to a really nicely planned freeway, which we could have totally done, and we probably will do areas like that later on in the city. But since this is sort of the oldest, highest capacity area, I wanted to go for that ramshackle style, like I said before. Okay, so now we're going to finish off a few of these ramps, and we're going to kind of get to the edge of the area that this episode is going to cover. So I'm going to let you watch that really quickly while I put those last few ramps in, and I'll be back in just a minute. Alright, I'm back. So as you can see, we are deleting that horrendous flyover ramp that I made. I just noticed that it looked a little too sharp, so then I realized here when I actually take the time to go through and massage it a little bit with Move It that you can just get this nice long curve. And that's kind of one way I like to build interchanges, is make really long sections, get the right curve you want, and that makes it a lot easier to get the right look. But when you have really long road sections like you do when you do that, the game has trouble rendering it when you're in certain areas, and it also seems to mess with the traffic a little bit. So what you can do is make those long segments and then go in and just draw road segments coming out in order to make new nodes, to make shorter segments overall. So I'm not exactly sure what to call this road system that we're doing here for the downtown, but basically what it is we get this long one-way road, and we keep kind of going back and forth in a second between two-way roads and one-way roads there, but we eventually stick with the one-way road, of course, because it's way more efficient, as I find out later. Anyway, we have that one-way road going along the main avenue to sort of intake all these people coming over the long off-ramp we just fixed, and essentially kind of distributing them across the downtown area so that they're all not clogged into the main street. For the overall design of the street layout for downtown, I was going for something that looks pretty old, and again, sort of like the interchange has just been built on and added on and altered as needed. So there are a lot of wavy lines and skinny roads where there should probably be higher capacity roads, that sort of thing. Dead ends, weird splits off, things sort of like that. And I think overall it gives it a very organic feel, but not in like an overly efficient or pleasant sort of way. It's more chaotic and more of a result of circumstance as opposed to coming from a desire to have like an organic street layout. And it results in some weird traffic patterns, but it ends up being kind of efficient. Maybe not efficient, but functional at least. And that's really all I'm going for. You know, not have massive traffic jams, but also not have like perfectly flowing traffic all the time. So the main downtown area in San Juan, at least as far as I can tell, is a place called the Golden Mile, I think, Milla de Oro. And I took a few road designs specifically from this area that I just thought were kind of cool and a little funky, and I pretty much copied them road for road. Here's this weird little trapezoid thing, which I really liked. I'd never really seen anything like that before, so I did that, as you can see here. And I think in real life, it's basically, at least as far as I can tell from looking at Google Maps, it's like a residential area that's a little separate from everywhere else and it has a bunch of towers there. I end up using it as a hotel complex, which you'll see in a later episode. And now there's this weird triangle, which is basically a 4-lane, 2-way road splitting off into two 2-lane, 1-way roads, if that makes any sense. And here you can see that in the actual Golden Mile, and I just thought that was kind of a funky thing to do. I really liked it. In fact, I liked it so much that I used it twice. I don't know if you noticed that before, but it basically occurs one time on each side of the main downtown road. Yeah, you can see it right there. And I also took more generally sort of the idea of long, skinny blocks at the edge of the main downtown area, and that's a theme we're going to be repeating all throughout the series. That's something I see all over San Juan, and I just think that's a really cool thing that you don't see in a lot of cities. I mean, I'm sure it's everywhere, but this is sort of the first place I noticed it on a large scale, so we're going to be doing that. Okay, so now we're getting started on the train tracks. And this is essentially going to be the city's metro system, which is going to be a single line, and that's totally based off of San Juan's metro system, which I think is called the Tren Urbano. And here's that real-life metro system overlaid with our maps. You can kind of get an idea of what I'm going for. And it's just one line that runs north to south to west. So we're going to be doing that with the metro line. Additionally, though, we are going to be doing quite a few tram lines, which of course will be serving as a more comprehensive light rail system that's going to go throughout all the main areas of the city. I think I'd like to do some bus rapid transit in the future. I think that would be cool. And as far as other transportation options are concerned, we'll of course be doing a lot of highway building. I'd like to maybe try to do an HOV lane system. Maybe in some of the more suburban areas. Of course, we'll also have a big port, which is going to be really fun. I think we'll do that not quite soon, but I'd like to get to that pretty quickly. I have some ideas that I'm really excited about for those episodes. And here the train track, or the metro track, I guess, is running down the middle of the highway, which is something I wanted to get a little bit of into the city. It's not going to be like that the whole way because it's kind of a pain to build, but I did want to have that one little section, and we do add a station at the end there. And the track snaking through the downtown is continuing our theme of things that have been added on and patched on over the years. So it sort of is fit into all these tight spaces. And as you'll see in a later episode, when we start adding buildings around it, it really gets the sense that it's kind of been just plopped in there after all these buildings and streets have already been built. So I'm assuming this thing is fairly recent, the metro system at least. So you'll be able to see here what I mean when I say that it is a pain to build train stations in the middle of a highway. It's super fun and totally worth it, but it's a pain, especially if you want the buildings to actually be serviced and have people be able to access it. You got to do a lot of move it and putting roads in weird places and hiding them. But again, it's a really fun challenge, but I didn't want to keep doing it over and over again, so that's why we just have this one here. I'm not sure exactly where this metro track is going to go, but I'm just going to save that issue for a later episode. And the way I solve this services and road connection issue is basically just dragging this road down, placing it where it needs to go to connect to the building, and then adding some services. And we're going to solve the issue of how to actually connect to the road system and the pedestrian path system up to that in a later episode. I haven't done it yet, but I assume that we'll be able to do it without too much trouble. So this 4-lane highway running through the middle of the downtown I thought looked a little too small, so I wanted to upgrade just to this 3-lane road because it's way wider and it has that cool kind of washed out look. And it just really didn't feel right to have the main high-capacity freeway area of the city just be this little 4-laner. And it also gives us more flexibility as far as what sort of highway is leading into this area. Because I often think of like driving into cities, you know, the lanes get more numerous as you're getting closer to the city because it's handling more traffic, both through traffic and traffic within the city. Planning issues aside, I just wanted to get that look. And now we're starting this tram depot, which of course is actually light rail. I'm going to try to refer to it as light rail. And we place it right here next to the downtown train station so that in a couple episodes we can sort of combine them and make this whole complex, which serves as the city's main rail hub. And of course, I couldn't resist bringing this light rail bridge over the freeway. I just think that looks so cool, and I could imagine driving under that and seeing a light rail vehicle go over that. I think that would be awesome. And yes, this whole build is going to be detailed next episode. And now to finish off this build, we're making a train line for the sole purpose of showing off this amazing asset that I found that I think fits the city perfectly. And the asset is called Metro Trains Extrapolis 100 by Infin15. Which, by the way, has a pretty funny workshop description, but I think it's a fantastic asset and the colors just fit the city really well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I apologize for the long absence. I hope you guys are all staying safe during everything that's happening out there. So enjoy the cinematics and see you next time on Todos Santos.